Chapter 1, Section 4 is pairs of angles. There are 5 definitions: adjacent angles, linear pair, complementary angles, supplementary angles, and vertical angles. Okay. To start off, we have adjacent angles. And all adjacent angles there are 2 angles that have the same vertex and they share a common side or ray. So angles ABD and DBC are adjacent because they share B and they share this segment BD. If you notice, it's in the name. Angle ABD, angle DBC. So they share this common side. Okay, I can move them around here a little bit. They're still adjacent. Okay, everything is still adjacent because they share BD. Okay, so those are adjacent angles. Now if I scroll down, this is what a linear pair looks like. A linear pair are 2 adjacent angles whose uncommon sides form opposite rays. So GF here is the common side, and then you have EF and you have FH. Notice they both form a straight line segment. Okay, they're opposite rays, they're going in opposite directions. If you looked at just this, it would be an angle of 180 degrees. So a linear pair are a pair of adjacent angles whose sum is equal to 180. If you notice, GFE here plus GFH equals 180. Even if I move this around, see how the angles change, but their sums do not? That means they're a linear pair. They share this common side and their sum is 180. Okay, now if you have 2 angles whose sum is 180, they don't have to be linear, but if they do, then that means that the 2 angles are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. So any 2 angles, regardless if they're touching or not, that add up to 180 degrees are supplementary. Okay. Now, complementary angles. Complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. They do not have to be adjacent. They can be, but they don't have to be. All it says is that they have to equal 90 when they sum together. So if you look here, IJK plus KJL sum to 90 degrees. So therefore, these 2 angles here are complementary. Okay, you notice their sums never change, it's always 90. That means that both of these angles are complementary of each other. Now, they are also adjacent right here, but they don't have to be. Okay. All right, now vertical angles. Okay. Vertical angles are 2 non-adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines. Okay, so for example, this angle and this angle are vertical because they don't share any sides, but they do share this common point N. Okay. MNP is vertical with ONQ. So really I have 2 pairs of vertical lines here. Right. Now, if you'll notice up here on the left, MNO and PNQ are the exact same. All right? That's a characteristic of vertical angles. If they're vertical, then they are congruent. They have the same measure. The same thing applies to M in P and O in Q. They both add up, or both not add up, excuse me, both of them are equal to the exact same thing. Okay, so if you notice I use 2 tick marks here to distinguish. If you have more than one pair of congruent angles then that aren't the same number, then you can just add tick marks to them. Alright, now if you'll notice, if I take MNO and I add it to MNP here, I get 180 degrees. Okay, so that means that these two angles, let's see, M and O, this angle, and this angle, when I add them up, if you notice, they form a supplementary angle. They're a linear pair. The same goes for these two angles. They are also a linear pair. Okay, here as well, if I want to do M in O and O in Q, they form a linear pair. Now, there's adjacent angles, linear pair, complementary angles, supplementary angles, and vertical angles. Okay, if you didn't get the definitions, adjacent angles are two angles that have the same vertex and they share a common side. A linear pair are adjacent angles whose uncommon side form opposite rays. They also sum to 180 degrees. Supplementary angles are angles that add up to 180. Complementary angles are angles that sum to 90 degrees. And vertical angles are angles that are non-adjacent, that are formed by intersecting lines, so they share a common vertex, and they are also congruent to one another.